The sound of Ashley's laughter, sharp and dismissive, sliced through the air, a chilling counterpoint to the idyllic beach setting. "We're all couples, so we get the master, my parents, the guest room. Your mother is just a lonely old widow. As far as I'm concerned, she can sleep on the floor." Her words, intended to be casually cruel, landed like a physical blow. If you're watching this, hit that like button and tell me your craziest family story in the comments. Sleep on the floor, not even the smallest bedroom, the actual floor. The audacity stung. I had poured over $3,000 into renting this stunning Cape Cod beach house for my milestone 70th birthday celebration. I invited my entire family, meticulously stocking the pantry with everyone's favorite treats. To discover this was the true extent of my daughter-in-law's affection after only 2 years of marriage felt like a betrayal of the deepest kind. I stood paralyzed, the cool ocean breeze doing nothing to cool the flush of humiliation creeping up my neck, my beach towel clutched tightly in my hand. Through the partially open window, I heard David's agreement, each chuckle a fresh wound. My son, the one I'd nurtured through college, the one whose early career I'd helped stabilize, the one whose extravagant wedding I had largely financed. "You're right, babe," David said, his voice laced with a dismissive affection for his wife. "Mom won't mind. She's pretty adaptable these days." Adaptable? I silently raged. They call it adaptable when you're navigating the wreckage of a 48-year marriage, when you're battling grief while plastering on a smile for everyone else's comfort. I had painstakingly arrived hours early, transforming the house into a welcoming haven. The refrigerator was overflowing with David's beloved craft beers and Ashley's collection of expensive, organic delicacies. Fresh flower arrangements adorned every room, from the vibrant sunflowers in the kitchen to the delicate lilies in the guest room, which, of course, I envisioned for Richard and Linda Hartwell, Ashley's parents. The master bedroom, the one I had specifically reserved with its breathtaking ocean view and the luxurious soaking tub promising relief for my aching arthritic joints, was supposed to be my sanctuary. The room I'd pictured as a peaceful haven during what would have been Harold's 74th birthday weekend. It was presumptuous of me, apparently, to assume I deserved a decent place to sleep in the house I was paying for. Ashley's voice drifted on the summer air. "Besides, at her age, how much sleep does she really need? She'll probably be up at 5 anyway, wandering around making noise." At 70, I might have a few years under my belt, but I was far from decrepit. I swam daily, practiced yoga with unwavering dedication, and could outwork people half my age. Yet, in Ashley's distorted view, I was a burdensome relic, deserving only of floor space. A booming laugh confirmed that Richard Hartwell had settled into accommodations more comfortable than what his daughter deemed acceptable for me in my rental. A different smile tugged at my lips, far removed from the polite, appeasing smiles I had spent a lifetime perfecting. This was something else entirely, a quiet promise of retribution that would have sent shivers down their spines had they seen it. Ashley was about to learn that beneath the facade of the lonely widow lay a woman brimming with hidden reserves of strength and a keen sense of justice. And David was about to remember precisely whose name was on the lease for this meticulously curated slice of paradise. The weekend was young, and I had an array of delightful surprises planned for my unappreciative family. I slipped through the kitchen door, my bare feet silent against the gleaming hardwood floors. The house was a pristine canvas of white walls, subtly accented with nautical blue, a testament to understated coastal elegance that felt jarringly at odds with the ugliness unfolding within. Too bad my family was about to learn that privilege came with strings attached. I moved swiftly to my purse and extracted my phone, along with the meticulously organized folder of paperwork I'd compiled. Months of planning had honed my preparedness to an almost unnerving degree. The rental agreement, the comprehensive insurance policy, the meticulously drafted additional contracts, all bearing my name, Margaret Peterson, all financed with my hard-earned money. From the guest room, the appreciative murmurs of Richard and Linda Hartwell as they unpacked echoed softly. Ashley's parents appeared to be genuinely kind-hearted individuals, which made their daughter's callousness even more baffling. "David, bring my suitcase up here," Ashley's voice commanded from upstairs. "I want to unpack before dinner." I'd observed the shift in dynamics since Harold's passing 3 years prior. The tendency to talk around me rather than to me, Ashley's habit of unilaterally making family plans and presenting them as fate's accomplice, David's careful, patronizing tone that implied a questioning of my cognitive abilities. It wasn't always this way. When David first introduced Ashley to the family 2.5 years ago, I had been ecstatic. She was strikingly beautiful, ambitious, articulate, everything I had hoped for in a partner for my son. Her parents, Richard and Linda, had made a favorable impression during our initial meeting, projecting an aura of successful yet grounded individuals who clearly cherished their daughter. However, somewhere along the way, particularly after their whirlwind marriage only 6 months later, the dynamic had soured. Perhaps it stemmed from my offer to assist with the down payment on their first house, or perhaps it was the months I had spent at their house during Harold's final illness, seeking comfort in their presence during his arduous treatments. Maybe it was Harold's death that cast me as a grim reminder of mortality rather than a person with my own intricate web of needs and emotions. Footsteps descending the stairs yanked me from my reverie. Time for a performance. "Oh, there you are, Mom." David appeared in the kitchen doorway, radiating the polished confidence of a successful financial advisor in his impeccably pressed khaki shorts and expensive polo shirt. "We were wondering where you'd disappeared to." "Just getting some water after my swim," I replied evenly, raising my freshly filled glass. "The pool is absolutely delightful, perfect temperature." Richard and Linda emerged from the guest room, looking refreshed and genuinely grateful. Richard was an affable man in his late 60s, his silver hair lending him an air of distinguished authority, while Linda was a picture of effortless elegance, embodying the grace of a woman who had dedicated her life to her family. "Margaret, this place is simply stunning," Linda said warmly, pointedly using my preferred name, unlike her daughter. "You've truly outdone yourself. Richard and I are so grateful you included us in your birthday celebration." The genuine appreciation from Ashley's parents made their daughter's treatment even more inexplicable. Ashley descended the stairs with the practiced grace of a seasoned performer, her designer sundress cascading around her like a theatrical prop. Every aspect of her appearance was carefully orchestrated: the expertly highlighted hair, the understated yet undeniably expensive jewelry, the way she moved through the room with an air of entitled ownership. "Margaret, this place is absolutely gorgeous," she gushed, pointedly using the formal name she knew I disliked. "Never Mom, never even Maggie, always Margaret, as if I were nothing more than a distant acquaintance. You really went all out." "I'm so glad everyone appreciates it," I responded smoothly. "I envisioned a wonderful family celebration here." David pecked my cheek with a perfunctory gesture of affection. "It's perfect, Mom, really. Ashley and I have already moved our belongings into the master bedroom, and her parents are settled in the guest room. Hope that's acceptable." "Of course," I said, my smile feeling brittle. "I'm simply happy everyone is comfortable." A flicker of bewilderment crossed Richard's face. "But Margaret, where will you be sleeping? Did you book another room somewhere?" The question hung in the air like a silent accusation, highlighting the inherent inequity of the situation. Ashley's face tightened almost imperceptibly as she registered her father's unintentional spotlight on her deception. "Oh, Mom is incredibly low maintenance," Ashley declared with practiced ease. "She said she'd be perfectly content with the pull-out sofa in the den, didn't you, Margaret?" The lie was delivered with such effortless conviction that I almost applauded her sheer audacity. I had never uttered such a sentiment, and Ashley knew it. Linda frowned. "The sofa? But dear, this is your birthday weekend. Surely you should have the nicest room." "Honestly, it's fine," I said, maintaining my strained smile while observing Ashley's jaw clench at her mother's reasonable statement. "I'm simply delighted to have everyone together." Richard still looked uneasy. "Margaret, I feel dreadful taking the guest room when you're the one who organized and financed this entire weekend." "Dad, please," Ashley interrupted, her voice laced with a sharp edge. "Margaret insisted on this arrangement. She specifically mentioned that she wanted David and me to have the master suite for our anniversary." Another blatant fabrication. Their anniversary was still 3 months away. Linda watched the exchange with growing unease, her instincts clearly picking up on the unspoken tensions simmering beneath the surface. She seemed to be a fundamentally good woman who had raised a daughter who had somehow deviated from the moral compass she had instilled. "Well," I said brightly, "I believe we should concentrate on enjoying a lovely family weekend together." Ashley's smile radiated triumph, but I caught the fleeting exchange of troubled glances between Richard and Linda. Unlike their daughter, they appeared to possess functioning consciences. After all, the show had only just begun. Dinner unfolded as a carefully orchestrated performance of passive-aggressive theater, with Ashley assuming the role of hostess at the meticulously arranged table, serving the gourmet food I had painstakingly chosen and financed to guests I had graciously invited to a house I had rented. "Everyone, I would like to propose a toast," Ashley announced, raising her glass of the premium wine I had thoughtfully selected, "to this beautiful weekend that David and I meticulously planned for our dear Margaret." Our dear Margaret, as if I were some frail elderly relative to be pitied rather than the woman who was footing the bill for their 5-star vacation. David raised his glass with unbridled enthusiasm. "To Mom for being such a good sport about everything." A good sport? For willingly agreeing to sleep on a pull-out sofa while everyone else luxuriated in the luxurious accommodations I had provided? Richard and Linda seemed increasingly uncomfortable with each passing moment. Unlike their daughter, they seemed to grasp the rudimentary concept of acknowledging the true host of the celebration. "Wait," Richard said cautiously, setting down his wine glass. "David, didn't Margaret plan and pay for this entire weekend? She's the one who called and invited us." Ashley's smile remained fixed in place, but I detected the flicker of annoyance in her eyes. "Well, of course, Margaret assisted with some of the logistics, but David and I were determined to do something truly special for her birthday. We've been planning this for months." The lie was so brazen, so utterly divorced from reality, that Linda actually blinked in surprise. "Planning this?" Linda repeated slowly. "Ashley, you called me 3 days ago and said Margaret had invited us to her birthday weekend at a beach house." My daughter-in-law's face underwent a rapid series of micro-expressions before settling into a posture of wounded innocence. "Mom, you're misremembering. David and I have been coordinating with Margaret for weeks." "That's not what you—" Linda started, but Richard placed a reassuring hand on her arm. I witnessed the precise moment Richard and Linda fully grasped the type of person their daughter had become. The look that passed between them was a complex blend of recognition and profound disappointment. "This is delicious seafood," Richard said diplomatically, deftly attempting to steer the conversation to safer waters. "Margaret, you have impeccable taste in restaurants." "Thank you," I replied. "I wanted everyone to savor the very best that Cape Cod has to offer." Ashley was visibly struggling to regain control of the narrative. Of course, we all contributed to making this weekend special. It's been a true family effort. Linda was staring at her daughter with an intensity I found unsettling. "Ashley, what exactly did you contribute to this weekend?" The question was delivered quietly, yet it reverberated with the force of a mother who was finally seeing her child with unclouded eyes. "Well, David and I have been helping with the planning. The planning you did 3 days ago when you called to inform us that we were invited to Margaret's birthday party." Linda's voice grew noticeably colder with each syllable. I excused myself from the table, feigning a need to fetch more wine, but in reality, I needed a moment to process the unfolding drama. Ashley's own parents were finally piercing through her carefully constructed facade, and they were clearly dismayed by what they were discovering. Through the dining room archway, I could overhear Linda's voice, measured and controlled. "Ashley, I believe we need to discuss the concept of proper gratitude. Margaret has been incredibly generous in including us in her celebration." "Mom, you don't understand the entire situation." "I understand perfectly," Richard interrupted, his voice firm. "Margaret organized this weekend, financed every aspect of it, and graciously invited us to partake in her birthday festivities. The least we can do is acknowledge her generosity honestly." Upon my return with the wine, the atmosphere around the table had undergone a seismic shift. Ashley looked cornered. David wore an expression of bewildered confusion, and Richard and Linda were regarding their daughter with undisguised disappointment. "Margaret," Linda said warmly as I refilled her glass, "Richard and I want you to know how incredibly grateful we are to be included in your birthday weekend. This is an act of extraordinary generosity." "It's my pleasure," I replied with genuine sincerity. "I'm overjoyed that you were both able to attend." Ashley's face was a mask of barely concealed rage, but she couldn't openly contradict her parents' account of events without appearing even more duplicitous. As I scanned the assembled family, I noticed Linda regarding me with a flicker of understanding. She was beginning to piece together the extent of Ashley's mistreatment, and the realization was clearly deeply unsettling. But let Ashley writhe. Let her struggle to maintain her web of lies in front of parents who had evidently instilled better values than she had chosen to embrace, because tomorrow was my actual birthday, and I had such carefully orchestrated surprises planned for everyone. I rose before dawn, as was my habit, and retreated to the deck, watching the sunrise paint the vast expanse of the ocean with brilliant hues of pink and gold. The house was cloaked in silence, save for the rhythmic crashing of waves against the shore and the low murmur of voices emanating from the guest room. Richard and Linda were early risers as well, it seemed. Through their slightly ajar window, I could hear the hushed tones of their conversation. "I don't comprehend what has transpired to her," Linda lamented. "The manner in which she spoke about Margaret last night, taking credit for everything, that is not how we raised her." "She has always been ambitious," Richard replied softly. "But this is different. This is dishonest and cruel." They were speaking of their daughter, and the pain in their voices was palpable. Good parents struggling to reconcile the child they had nurtured with the person she had become. By 8 a.m., the house began to stir to life. Ashley emerged from my bedroom, clad in the silk pajamas I had given her as a Christmas gift last year, stretching languidly as she surveyed the breathtaking ocean view from the master suite's private balcony. "Good morning, Margaret," she called down to where I sat immersed in a book on the main deck. "Did you sleep well on the sofa?" The sofa. Not the floor she had initially suggested, but still a calculated reminder of my demoted status in the pecking order she had created. "Wonderfully," I called back, my voice devoid of emotion. "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" Richard and Linda soon appeared, both looking visibly troubled. Linda approached me with undisguised concern. "Margaret, dear, we must discuss the sleeping arrangements. Richard and I are perfectly content to take the sofa bed, and you should have the guest room. This is your celebration." "That's incredibly kind of you." "It's not a matter of kindness. It's basic decency," Richard interrupted with unwavering firmness. "We are guests in the house you have rented. You should not be relegated to sleeping on a piece of furniture while we occupy a proper bedroom." Ashley materialized at the sliding door, her face drawn tight with suppressed panic. "Mom, Dad, we discussed this last night. Margaret specifically requested this arrangement." "No, Ashley," Linda countered, her voice laced with a mother's authority. "You told us Margaret requested it, but we never heard Margaret utter such a sentiment." David appeared, coffee mug in hand, clearly sensing the rising tension. "What's going on?" "Your mother-in-law," Richard said deliberately, "is sleeping on a sofa while her guests occupy the bedrooms in the house she has rented and financed. We are discussing how to rectify this wholly inappropriate situation." I observed Ashley's face as her father effectively called her behavior inappropriate to her face. The carefully constructed mask was beginning to crumble, revealing something harder and more calculating beneath. "Dad, you don't understand the full context." "Then enlighten us," Linda demanded. "Explain how it makes sense for Margaret to sleep on a piece of furniture during her own birthday weekend." The first surprise arrived promptly at 9:30 a.m., shattering the strained family dynamic. A catering truck from the most exclusive restaurant in Provincetown, followed in rapid succession by a florist's van laden with exotic blooms and a party rental truck brimming with elegant decorations. "Margaret?" Ashley appeared at the sliding door, momentarily diverted from her efforts to defend her actions to her parents. "What is all of this?" "My birthday party, dear," I replied pleasantly. "I thought we should do something truly special." Richard and Linda exchanged knowing glances, clearly realizing that the generosity they had witnessed thus far was merely the tip of the iceberg. David joined Ashley, his executive mind automatically calculating the exorbitant costs. "Mom, this looks exceedingly expensive. Are you certain about this?" "Am I certain I can afford to celebrate my own 70th birthday in style?" I asked, a laugh escaping my lips that caused them all to recoil slightly. "Oh, David, I think it's time we had a conversation about precisely who can afford what around here." The second surprise came in the form of a sleek black sedan pulling into the driveway. My attorney, Patricia Williams, emerged, radiating the formidable aura of the accomplished lawyer she was, carrying a briefcase bulging with documents we had spent the past 6 months diligently preparing. Linda nudged Richard, who straightened his posture with visible relief. Finally, someone who might bring a semblance of sanity to the escalating chaos. "Mrs. Peterson," Patricia said warmly, mounting the deck stairs. "This is a beautiful property you've rented." "That I've rented," I repeated, ensuring that everyone registered the emphasis. "Yes, it is lovely, isn't it?" Ashley's eyes darted nervously between Patricia and me, while her parents watched with growing comprehension. "This is Patricia Williams, my attorney," I announced. "Patricia, these are Ashley's parents, Richard and Linda Hartwell, my son David, and my daughter-in-law, Ashley." The utterance of the word attorney triggered varying reactions from each individual. Ashley's face paled considerably. David feigned an intense interest in the contents of his coffee mug, but Richard and Linda looked almost hopeful. "Attorney?" Ashley's voice rose an octave. "Margaret, why would you need an attorney for a birthday party?" "Mrs. Peterson requested my presence to review some documents with the family," Patricia said, with practiced professional warmth. "Nothing particularly alarming, simply some clarifications regarding property rights and financial responsibilities that we have been working on together." Richard nodded approvingly. Finally, someone was advocating for Margaret's best interests, but the third surprise was just pulling into the driveway. A moving truck, and that was going to change everything. The moving truck was modest, just large enough to accommodate the belongings that Ashley and David had brought for the weekend. I had arranged for everything to be carefully relocated to the charming bed and breakfast down the road. "You can't possibly be serious," Ashley whispered, watching in disbelief as movers carried her designer luggage past the windows. Richard and Linda stood frozen, observing their daughter's possessions being removed while attempting to grapple with the implications. "Oh, but I am," I said, settling back into my deck chair with a satisfied sigh. "Patricia, would you be so kind as to explain the legal implications to my family?" Patricia consulted her notes with professional enthusiasm. "Mrs. Peterson holds the sole rental agreement for this property. As such, she has the exclusive right to determine occupancy. When someone intentionally misrepresents their role in organizing or financing an event, it creates grounds for lawful removal." "Removal?" Linda gasped, casting a look of horror at her daughter. David finally found his voice. "Mom, this is insane. We're family, aren't we?" "Are we?" I interrupted. "Because family members do not typically suggest that their mothers sleep on the floor. Family members do not steal credit for the generosity of others, and they certainly do not lie to their own parents about who organized what." Richard's face was grim as the pieces of the puzzle clicked into place. "Ashley, did you tell us that Margaret wanted to sleep on the sofa?" Ashley's survival instincts kicked into overdrive. "Dad, this is all a misunderstanding. Margaret's been acting strangely lately, and I was simply attempting to manage—" "Manage what?" Linda's voice was sharp now. "Margaret appears to be perfectly lucid to me. She organized this weekend, financed every aspect of it, and extended a gracious invitation to us. What exactly did you think you were managing?" Patricia extracted a document. "Perhaps this will help to clarify matters. This is the rental agreement, signed solely by Mrs. Peterson, accompanied by itemized receipts for the catering, flowers, and all weekend expenses. Total cost, approximately $8,000. Richard's face turned ashen. $8,000? "Ashley, were you aware that Margaret was spending that sum on this weekend?" We It was not intended to be that expensive, precisely because you were not contributing, Linda said quietly, the full scope of her daughter's behavior finally becoming clear. You were taking credit for a level of generosity you could not possibly afford to display. Ashley dropped to her knees beside my chair in a theatrical display of desperation. Margaret, please, I did not mean those things about the floor. I was merely stressed about the arrangements. Stressed about ensuring everyone's comfort by claiming the master bedroom I had reserved and financed? Richard stepped forward, his voice heavy with disappointment. Ashley, stand up. This is undignified. But Ashley ignored her father, grasping my hands tightly. Please do not throw us out. This is your birthday weekend. We can work this out. Can we? I asked gently. Because I recall your words quite vividly from yesterday. She can sleep on the floor, were your exact words about me, not the sofa, the floor. Linda gasped audibly. The floor, Ashley? You suggested that Margaret sleep on the floor? The ensuing silence was deafening. Even Ashley seemed to realize that admitting this in front of her parents made her look even worse. I was joking, Ashley said weakly. It was just a joke between family. No, Richard said firmly. That was not a joke. That was cruelty. Patricia cleared her throat diplomatically. Mrs. Peterson has arranged alternative accommodations for David and Ashley at the Anchor Inn down the road. They boast Victorian charm, shared facilities, a continental breakfast, and a shared bathroom. Ashley gasped. At your age, I thought you might appreciate a more authentic experience, I said sweetly. Linda was staring at her daughter with a mixture of grief and disbelief. Ashley, what have you become? David's business acumen was attempting to salvage what he could. Mom, if you have financed everything, allow me to reimburse you. With what money? So, as you can see, sometimes the deepest betrayals come from the very people we expect to love and cherish us the most. But Margaret's story reminds us that even in the face of such hurt, we possess an inner strength and resilience we never knew we had. It's about rediscovering your worth and standing up for yourself, no matter your age or circumstance. And this is just the beginning. In part 2, you'll see how Margaret crafts the perfect, proportionate revenge she has planned for the family she invited, and how she finds herself more in tune with herself. I am excited to let you all hear how this comes together. Now, I'm dying to hear your thoughts. What did you think of Margaret's initial reaction? Did you see Ashley's true colors from the beginning? Share your comments, ask questions, or tell me what you would have done differently. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss part 2. We'll be diving right back into the drama and seeing exactly how Margaret navigates this family fiasco. Plus, subscribing means you'll be the first to know about all my upcoming videos. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the comments.